Hi there, it's Mary here, and I'm finally getting back to my Random Fact Fridays. This time I'm recording it on a Friday. Hopefully I'll get it up in time. With my limited editing right now, I probably will get it up before it turns into Saturday officially. But I wanted to do this Random Facts actually last Friday, but it's still relevant. It's about fall or autumn. I figured since in the northern hemisphere where I happen to live, it is now officially fall. Last week is when we reached that point, and now the days are getting shorter. But why not have some fun facts about this season? So, to begin with, autumn, which is the British English, or fall for American English now, is one of the 4 temperate seasons. Autumn marks the transition from summer to winter, when the duration of daylight becomes noticeably shorter and the temperature cools down considerably. Now last week here, it was in the 90s, and now all of a sudden it hit more like fall weather. It almost feels like it went from summer to fall overnight, but we had weird kind of fall-like weather before this. Not technically what they call an Indian summer. For that, you have to have a frost after it hits fall officially, and then it warms up. But it was interesting. I must admit, I liked the hot and humid that we were getting. I'm a weirdo. Even though I love Halloween. It's my favorite holiday, I still love the warmth more. So the word autumn comes from the ancient Etruscan root autu, A-U-T-U, and has within it connotations of the passing year. It was borrowed by the neighboring Romans and became the Latin word autumnus, which we now go to autumn. After the Roman era, the word continued to be used as the old French word automne. Now it's automne. The old French word is A-U-T-O-M-P-N-E. The current word for autumn in French is A-U-T-O-M-N-E. So no P anymore. Or autumnal in Middle English. My Middle English is not very good. I'm sorry about that. And was later normalized to the original Latin. In the medieval period, there are rare examples of its use as early as the 12th century, but by the 16th century it was in common use. So by that point, people were using the word autumn pretty freely. Before the 16th century, harvest was the term usually used to refer to the season, as it is commonly in other West Germanic languages to this day. For example, in Dutch, it's Herbst. Dutch is not that good either. German is Herbst, H-E-R-B-S-T. The Dutch was H-E-R-F-S-T. And Scots, Herfst. Unfortunately, I don't speak Scottish either yet. Something to strive for. Right now, I'm working on the German. As more people gradually moved from working the land to living in towns, the word harvest lost its reference to the time of year and came to refer to only the actual activity of reaping, and autumn, as well as fall, began to replace it as a reference to the season. So it was no longer harvest at that point. They weren't harvesting. If they were living in cities, they didn't tend to refer to it as harvest. They got their foods from the farmers instead, and so they wouldn't think of it the same way. So the alternative word for fall, for the season, traces its origins to Old Germanic languages. The exact derivation is unclear, with the Old English Fioel, F-I-O-E-L-L, Old English needs work too, or Feallan, F-E-A-L-L-A-N, and the Old Norse Fall, F-A-L-L. So just like we know it today, I'm just guessing that the pronunciation is different. I don't know anybody who speaks Old Norse, unfortunately. All being possible candidates. However, these words all have the meaning to fall from a height. and are clearly derived either from a common root or from each other. The term came to denote the season in 16th century England, again 16th century, so we have fall or autumn being used in 16th century England at this time. And it's a contraction of Middle English expressions like fall of the leaf and fall of the year. Makes sense, we usually associate fall with the leaves falling from the trees. During the 17th century, English immigration to the British colonies in North America was at its peak, and the new settlers took the English language with them. While the term fall gradually became obsolete in Britain, it became the more common term in North America. Studies that linguists have found typically show that colonies will retain the original language more closely, while the original country will let it evolve a little bit more. So the studies have shown that Quebecois French, for example, is more true to what French was when Quebec was actually just founded to what the French was in France at that time. So I think they believe it has to do with holding on to your roots and your heritage a little more when you're so far away from home, and that's how it works out. It is an interesting field. Sometimes I think I should go back and study linguistics. So the name back-end, a once common name for the season in northern England, has today been largely replaced by the name autumn. Explains why in the States we call it fall, in Britain they call it autumn. Since 1997, autumn has been one of the top names for girls in the United States. Like I said, random facts, they're fun. In Indian mythology, when I say Indian, I mean India that's an Asian, not Native Americans culture, indigenous peoples. Autumn is considered to be the preferred season for the goddess of learning, Saraswati, who is also known by the name of goddess of autumn, Sharada. Anybody who's Indian out there, if I mispronounce those, I'm sorry, I did the best I could. In Asian mysticism, autumn is associated with the element of metal, and subsequently with the color white. The white tiger of West and death and mourning. In China, Korea, and some other Asian countries, white actually represents death and mourning and bad luck, and is traditionally worn at funerals. Japan, for example, however, does not hold this to be true. Just a little extra fact. So, if you think about it, the crops are dying, the leaves are dying in the fall usually. Makes sense that they would associate it with the white of death, at least in some of the Asian countries. In the United States, Labor Day is a public holiday celebrated on the first Monday in September. The harvest moon is the full moon which occurs closest to the autumnal equinox. So whichever one it is that's closest. I don't know if technically next week would be it, or if we already had it. I'm not 100% sure. I haven't looked into it. September is derived from the Latin word for seven. So why isn't it the seventh month, right? And the word in Latin is septem that it derives from. Well, in the current Julian calendar created by Julius Caesar, it's the ninth month of the year. However, when it was named by the Romans, the calendar started in March, so September was actually the seventh month of the year. So that is why September has the name of seven, essentially. So this is something I remember happening, and I thought it was a very happy thing in a lot of ways, even though some artwork was lost as a result. The overall good was better. The Berlin Wall, which was an iconic symbol of the Cold War. For you youngins who don't know about that, look into it. It's very interesting. It actually divided a country, so you had East Germany and West Germany. But that came down on November 10th of 1989. Yay! St. Francis of Assisi, who is the patron saint of animals and the environment, and on his feast day, the blessing of the animals is held, and that feast day is held on October 4th. Richard Nixon changed the celebration of Columbus Day national holiday from October 12th to the second Monday in October, and now many places seem to be using it as a day to celebrate Indigenous peoples instead of Columbus, partially because of controversy of things that Columbus and his people did, but also, believe it or not, the Norse found America long before Columbus did. So he didn't even really discover America. But celebrate the Indigenous peoples. That's a nice reassignment. I don't know what you guys think about it. Feel free to try to start a conversation below about it. November 2nd is National Deviled Egg Day. Yum. I know some people don't like them. I love them. Dr. No, the first James Bond movie starring Sean Connery as 007, was released October 5th of 1962. On October 2nd of 1954 was the first and only time Elvis Presley performed on Nashville's Grand Ole Opry stage. You would have think it would have been more since he lived so close, but just the once. The first Peanuts comic strip, written by Charles Schulz, was published October 2nd of 1950. According to researchers at the University of Chicago, people born in the fall have the highest chance of living to be 100 years old. Now that is a correlation, not a causation. Don't confuse the two. On December 15th, 1791, it's still fall in December. Until around December 21st, it'll still be fall. I know we sometimes like to think of it as like December 1st, it's winter. No, it's fall. By science terms, it is fall. So on December 15th, 1791, the first 10 amendments to the Constitution, also called the Bill of Rights, were ratified. Important stuff here. Hopefully people pay attention to that out there. According to a national survey done by the Social Security Administration of 12,000 Americans, October 5th was the most common date of birth. You must have a lot of people who have a chance of living to 100 if the most common date of birth is October 5th, right smack dab during fall. For students seeking early decision for college, the usual deadline for submission of applications is November 15th. So if you're looking to get into college and you want early admission, you better get those applications in soon. Sweetest Day is celebrated on the third Saturday of October, and this is something I found super interesting. This day is to take time to remind people that small, thoughtful gestures can enrich our lives. So this commercialism that's gotten into it is crazy. You don't need to spend a huge amount of money on flowers and stuffed animals. Do something nice and little for your loved ones that day. That's what you're supposed to be appreciating. Because it really is the little stuff that you'll remember in the future, at least in my experience. So because of its wide variety of trees, the eastern United States, especially the northeastern US, is considered one of the best places in the world for viewing fall colors. Bright red and purple colors come from anthocyanin. Pigments, like in maple leaves, are formed from trapped glucose. Brown colors come from a waste product called tannin. It's also in teas, if you didn't know. It gives it that little tang or bitter taste. Orange colors come from carotene, and the yellows from xanthophyll. The leaf colors, red, yellow, and brown, are in the leaves all year long, and they're only exposed when the green chlorophyll disappears in the fall because it's not getting as much sun, or it's just the cycle. Mulching fall leaves where they fall lets them decompose so that they can release their minerals back into the underlying soil. Composting is actually really good for your soil, and there are so many things you can compost, not just leaves. You can compost eggshells are a great thing. In fact, you can even start some of your plants in eggshells and then plant the whole eggshell in the ground when you're planting, and it puts the calcium in there. Coffee grounds. There are so many things that you can compost. Sometimes I wish I didn't live in an apartment so I could do more of that kind of stuff, but I live in an apartment. Fall colors are best when late summer is dry and autumn has bright sunny days and cool nights below 40 degrees. Composting fall leaves is an excellent way to improve yard and garden soils. Mixing green and brown materials together is the basic rule. So again, more about composting. An acre of trees can grow 4,000 pounds of wood in a year using 5,880 pounds of carbon dioxide and giving off 4,280 pounds of oxygen in the process. They are such an important aspect. That's why deforestation is such an important thing to worry about. If cutting down too many trees and getting rid of too much vegetation will actually take away from our clean air. Unlike the bright colors of flowers, which attract pollinators, or the bright warning colors of many kinds of animals, the bright colors of fall foliage are a byproduct of chemical changes as the tree starts to go dormant. These colors have no apparent biological function or significance. They just happen. But I think it's because they're already in there, it's just that they're masked the rest of the year by the green. The most intense of fall color occurs in areas such as New England, with almost pure stands of a few types of trees, such as maple and birches, that all turn color same time during the short fall season. The most varied fall colors, as well as the longest lasting, occurs in areas such as the southern Appalachians, where a dozen or more kinds of trees may change color at slightly different times over the longer fall season. Evergreen trees, which we think of as not really shedding their leaves, but they may shed their older leaves, which often turn bright yellow in spring rather than fall, but they never drop all of their leaves at one time, thus staying green all year. If they are entirely yellow, that means it's a dead tree. Bright sunlight is essential for the production of the red anthocyanin pigment in the fall leaves, sorry. If a black mask is placed on a part of a leaf before it turns red, the part of the leaf under the mask will turn yellow, while the exposed part will turn red. An equinox occurs twice a year, when the tilt of the Earth's axis is inclined neither away from nor towards the sun. The center of the sun being in the same plane as the Earth's equator. The term equinox can also be used in a broader sense, meaning the date when such a passage happens. The name equinox is derived from the Latin equus, meaning equal, and nox, meaning night. Because around the equinox, the night and day have approximately equal length. And I think I actually pronounced the one part wrong. No, I didn't. I lied. It's equus. It's equus. So although the word equinox is often understood to mean equal day and night, this is not strictly true. For most locations on Earth, there are two distinct identifiable days per year when the length of day and light are closest to being equal. Those days are referred to as the equinoxes, or equinoxes. To distinguish them from equinoxes, or equinoxes if you really want to get super technical, equinoxes are points in time, but equinoxes are days. By convention, equinoxes are the days where sunrise and sunset are closest to being exactly 12 hours apart. So hopefully you learned something new about fall and enjoyed my new fall facts, and I have some fun colored cards that I did them on, appropriate with the changing leaves time of year. I hope you're all having a great day and a great fall so far. And please, be kind to each other. Bye.